I'm David Rice with Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, and today we're going to discuss how you can at home figure out how long you should be running your sprinklers by conducting a simple water check or a water audit on your sprinkler system. So to do that, I'll first explain the purpose of an audit. When we do this service and help customers try to figure out that we're setting out calibrated cups and we're running sprinkler zones to determine how uniform water is applied and how evenly that water is being applied. That leads us to then calculate how long and how often you should be watering. We can leave you a customized schedule. Well, the tool that we'll provide you on our website, on the link for this video, will help you to be able to also figure that out if you're using multiple cups and timing your irrigation. Now, I'll talk about two methods today, one using a simple couple of cans and one using many cans to measure. But when you're done with this, the objective is you'll know how long you should be running your sprinklers. And once you know how long you should be running your sprinklers, that's a factor that doesn't change. The things that do change in your irrigation would be how often or the frequency in which you're running your sprinkler system throughout the course of the season. It'll be running less in the spring, it'll be running more in the summer at the peak heat time of our year, and then it'll taper off again in the fall. But that run time that you're applying to try to get a ½ inch of water each time will remain consistent. Okay, so the first method of which we'll talk about to conduct a water audit involves simply a couple of cans. You know, you can get a couple of cans. Ideally, they're straight cylinder cans. They can be little soup cans. They can, these had fruit in them. And the idea is you're trying to measure how long does it take me to get a ½ inch of water in my can. Now, this has a mark on the outside, but you're going to want to use a ruler, and you're going to want to make a mark inside the can at the ½ inch depth. And that way, this will kind of give you a gauge. Now, to help us out, I've also just got this cup, and I've made a ½ inch mark, so you can kind of gauge, because you can see through this cup. Now, this is not straight-sided, so the measurements will be slightly different here than here. But the idea is this will help you kind of know where you are with the measurements as you're running sprinklers. And you're gonna record the time. How long does it take to apply that ½ inch of water? So we'll show you how this is set up, and we'll run some sprinklers. So we've got our cans set up. We've got the sprinkler heads marked with a yellow flag, and we've put out the cup in a couple of cans, another sprinkler head over there, and then I've got some other setup over here that we'll discuss in a minute. So with that, what we're going to do now is we're going to run the sprinklers, we're going to time it, see how long it takes me to get a ½ inch of water in that can. Okay, we've run that sprinkler zone, and now I've got some measurable water. So you can see in this cup, we got about a ½ inch. We've got about that same volume in this can. Now to measure that exactly, you just take your same ruler, you stick that in there, and you can see on the ruler the wet mark where I'm up at about a ½ inch of water. Now the cup was simply to kind of gauge how long. Now this, for the zone that I ran and the overlapping that I got with the two zones to get that ½ inch, I've got a run time of about 45 minutes. Now it's going to range between 45 and 50, so you're off by just a minute or two. It's not going to be a big deal. But now that you know that, you've got your run time. It took 45 minutes to get a ½ inch. Your run time should be maintained consistently throughout the season. And now you just change the frequency at which you apply that, so that as temperatures warm up, you're applying more water per week, but you're not applying more water per irrigation cycle. So at the peak of the summer, you're applying about 1½ inches of water, which equates to about 3 times a week irrigation. And earlier and later in the season, spring and fall, you may only need a ½ inch to 1 inch. And so you're adjusting your frequency, not the run time, through the season to maintain a healthy, deep-rooted lawn that's getting plenty of water but still saving water in the process. Now for method 2. Now method 2 involves, if you have a set of calibrated cups, they don't have to look just like this, but anything that's calibrated that it shows you a measurement as you're catching the water, you can set these up. Now ideally you're setting up somewhere around 12, maybe 15, 16, up to 20 cups. So 12 to 20 over the irrigated area of those zones. The idea is with that number of cups, you're not only going to know how fast water is applied and the time it takes to get a ½ inch, you're also going to know the uniformity of how evenly water is applied throughout that zone. Then you can make changes to fix those to avoid brown spots and other issues that come up with inappropriate and ununiform or non-uniform irrigation applied. So we're going to run some sprinklers. I want to just take a quick look here. Behind me I've got the cups set up. So out here we've got cups set up. We've got flags marked with yellow flag, or irrigation heads marked with the yellow flags, and the calibrated cups. Now your spacing is you're a few feet away from the head. It can be 3 to 4 feet away from the head. Usually you got 1 to 2 cups between heads, and then set them up in a grid pattern throughout the zone so that you're trying to, again, determine how evenly water is being distributed throughout that zone. Okay, we've got our water running. So you can see the sprinkler head, and it's covering over those cups. Now notice these rotor heads are going to go back and forth, and it's going to take a bit of time to cover this area. We've got the second head over here. They're going to go back and forth. Now because those heads over there are not running, I'll run this zone for 5 minutes, and then I'll run the other zone for 5 minutes. So to get a measurable amount of water, I'll get a total of about 10 minutes. No need to run the zone for the full time. With about 10 minutes, I'll have measurable amount of water. You can plug these values into the sheet we're going to provide you, and then you can get a calculated uniformity value and rate of application. Okay, now that we've run our sprinkler zone, we have measurable water in our cups. Now, to get a measurable amount of water in our cup, it took about 10 minutes. And with 10 minutes, the measurement on this cup is about 1/10 of an inch in 10 minutes, just a tad more. Now, that kind of equates to what I said about a 45-minute run time for a 1/2 inch, 45 to 50 minutes. If we're getting 1/10 of an inch every 10, to get a 1/2 inch, it's about 50-minute run time for where this cup was placed. Now, other cups will have slightly different values because the uniformity will be not 100% efficient. So now that we've got those measurements, you enter each of the cup values into the sheet provided, and then a calculation will happen to give you the precipitation rate, the uniformity value, and a run time. Very important that you keep track of the time though. That time factor will be critical in helping you know the overall scheduling. So record and time yourself when measuring these cups. Now if you're doing this with soup cans, you can set up 16 cans, and then you just simply measure each one of them separately. Now with a ruler, you're not going to be very, you're kind of going to be going, instead of a decimal form, you need to figure out a decimal form. And there's little converters if you need on the internet, calculators. So your 1/4 of an inch is 0.25, your 1/2 inch is 0.5, your 1/8 of an inch, you got to figure those out into decimal form. So where you're getting a 0.1 to a 0.15 to a 0.2 to a 0.25 and so forth on up to 1 inch. Anyway, measure that out, put those into the sheet we're providing you, and then when you're all done, we'll have you a customized schedule with a uniformity value, a precipitation rate, and then the scheduling that will kind of help you out through the summer, customized based on what's happened in that one zone of your yard. Okay, now that you know the run time, you know how much water and how fast it's being applied, you know how long it should take to run your sprinklers throughout the summer. Well, just to fill one irrigation zone to get a 1/2 of an inch of water. So now that you know that, let's talk about some of the things that you need to think about to improve that efficiency. So if you've got pop-up sprinkler heads, these are these kind. The nozzles pop up and they spray a pattern. Each of these nozzles has a number on it. That number is the throw radius. That's how far water should be going out of this nozzle based on ideal conditions if it's not plugged or anything. So if this has a number 10, ideally the next head is 10 feet away. Water from the sprinkler head should be reaching the next head and vice versa, it come back. So if this is 15, you can go 15 feet between head spacing. Same applies with the gear driven. Some of these will go 20 feet or 35 feet. But ideally you're spacing the heads at the throw radius. Sometimes the misconception is that this goes 10 feet, the other one goes 10 feet, I can space these 20 feet apart and they'll meet in the middle. They're not designed that way. To get optimal uniformity and coverage, you need to have what's called head-to-head coverage. It sprays from one head to the next. So if you're using impacts, same principle. The other thing that's very important to fix uniformity is if this is the grade of your soil, sprinkler heads should be at grade. Occasionally over time they can become sunken. They get pushed down or soil builds up and they get low, so as it pops up, occasionally the grass may block spray, therefore it affects the uniformity. The other thing that might happen is over time, a lawnmower or something happens, these get tilted a little bit. Tilted heads will really throw off the uniformity value of your sprinkler system because now water's spraying down where it should have been spraying up, and this one's spraying up, should have been spraying even, uniform around. So really important to check those things. Also, pressure can be an issue if your sprinkler system's not putting out the volume you think it should. If this is a 10-foot nozzle but it's not spraying 10 feet, sometimes you can adjust the nozzle, or you've got a plug, you've got something clogged up. There's a little screen inside these. You can clean and check your main filter, check things that might affect the overall irrigation, and for sure periodically walk around your yard and make sure everything's performing, that these nozzles aren't broken, that something's not cracked or split. Over winter you might get something, you might get a lawnmower that hits these. Anything could happen where you need to do an evaluation periodically. Run your sprinklers when you can watch them. Make sure everything is working effectively, that no nozzles are broken, that it's spraying where it should be spraying, that the alignment of those sprinklers is going where it should be going. They can get moved and bumped occasionally just by average lawn care. So now that you know that, you should be able to effectively water your lawn, get the uniformity that you need, and only as much water as it actually needs to maintain a healthy lawn. You'll save lots of water, you'll have a green lawn. You know, if you have a few brown spots, hand water those brown spots or fix your irrigation system. But overall, the objective here is you're going to know how long you should be running your sprinklers to be effective. So I'm David Rice with Weber Basin Water. I hope that's been helpful. Stay tuned to our website and our social media site for additional tips and tools and programs, classes, and other things that may help you be more water effective as you maintain your landscape. Thanks for joining us.